Trevor Noah once said America is 50 countries masquerading as one. Do you think this is true or false? If so, why? Anytime I read questions that end in and why. Like this, I think that some 9th grader got assigned an essay and wants Reddit to write it for them. Can you answer that in 2 pages? At least 500 words double-spaced with MLA citations, please. Duck your MLA. Chicago for life. Appa mother duckers. Woo, we getting crazy up in here. I got a fucking dirty ass fetish for footnotes. Cite that fucking paraphrase, baby, and indent the fuck out of it. This sounds like a starter for a history essay. It's a misconception that all 50 states are supposed to be uniform. It's from a perspective of folks that prefer a larger national government, but each state is supposed to be free to do its own thing. It's almost like we have an amendment saying this exact thing: the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. That's the point of a federal country, such as Austria, Belgium, Ethiopia, Germany, Malaysia, Mexico, Nigeria, Pakistan, Switzerland, or the United Arab Emirates. Edit. Alright, got it. Defend the USA. A bunch of upvotes. You don't even need to look at federal countries. Even hugely centralized countries can have huge regional differences. I come from Brittany, Western France. Our culture is vastly different from the rest of France. We are Celts, we have our own language, food, and traditions. Southern France and Northern France are also extremely different culturally. Alsace, Pays Basque, and Corsica, just like my own region, have their own specific languages and culture. And I haven't even talked about overseas territories. Yeah, this is correct. Many countries of the world have these divisions. I think people forget that countries are just lines on a map. Culturally speaking, it's not correct if you're saying this is where X culture starts, and where X culture begins, as this guy said with France. I'm English, so I can only comment on the places I've been. Lyon is culturally very different to Normandy, which are all very different to Parisians. A very interesting one is the Basque region of France, as people from the Basque region would probably feel more relatable to someone from Barcelona than Paris on a cultural level. Here in England is the same. All the way down in Cornwall there's a whole different culture to, say, Merseyside, language and food being big ones. So the original from op is applicable to many countries around the world. I think the US is probably a bit more extreme than, say, France or England, but to a degree it's correct everywhere because that's just how culture works. This is true of most countries. I live in Germany, but Germany isn't just one country. There is a constitution, the basic law Grundgesetz, and federal laws passed by Congress. Then there are the state laws passed by the state governments. Then there are local regulations defined by the counties, cities, or town governments. Bavaria, for example, is a free state. The Bavarian leaders never signed the German Basic Law, but stated that they would accept it if 23 of the rest of the German states signed it. All other German states did sign it, so the law applies to Bavaria as well. But Bavaria still sees itself as somewhat more independent than other German states. Bavaria, for example, has a political party that is only active in that state, the CSU, that is associated with the CDU that is active in all other German states. In the current German government, the CSU has several minister positions, even though it only represents one of 16 states in the country. Federal laws are the same across the country. But things like education and schools are in the responsibility of the state, so there are differences. The states try to align them as much as possible, but there are differences, because each state allocates different budgets for education. Sounds like Bavaria is German Texas. Edit. Thanks for the gold. When you picture a German, you picture a person from Bavaria. When people picture an American, they most likely think of a person from Texas. As a Texan, I'm okay with this, but the New Yorkers might take offense. The whole idea is that there are 50 independent political entities under one flag, so masquerading isn't the best description, but he's not totally off base. He kind of is. I mean, there are large regional differences, sure, but it's not like German versus Italian level differences. You could probably make an argument that it's 3 to 4 countries trying to act unified, but it's kind of hard, to try to say New Mexico and Arizona are supposedly so far apart from one another that it's basically like going to another country. Sure, the demographics and government change, but it's not that dramatic. If the US were to ever balkanize, it would be roughly along these lines. This seems mostly accurate, but Texas would proclaim independence and then just ally themselves with the rest of the region. And maybe Louisiana if they were cool. Don't forget Hawaii would also proclaim independence. As an Oklahoman for most of my life, I can say that Oklahoma is basically Texas light, so they'd probably just join the Republic of Texas if it came to Texas leaving the US. Just taking the phrase United States of America literally would suggest exactly that. The word state means country, territory organized politically under a government. America is the landmass, i.e. North America, South America. So yeah, there are 50 states that are united as if they are a single one ruled under another big government, and they all happen to be in America. France is a state, and Poland is a state, and Canada is a state, they just aren't among the united ones of America. It was once common to say the United States are, rather than the United States is. I've heard that the turning point was the Civil War. It used to be common to say these United States rather than the United States. So if you weren't part of the country, would you say those United States? Then they're United States. I'd recast Trevor's comment this way: 50 sovereign identities coexisting as one republic. Don't know about USA, but this is spot on for India. Languages, cuisine, culture varies wildly throughout the country, as you travel from one state to another. The closest analogy to India is probably Europe with respect to diversity and culture. Didn't realize it was applicable to us. True. You compare Assam, Rajasthan, JK and Kerala, you wouldn't believe you're in the same country. This is sometimes even true for the states that share borders with each other. Not really. I suppose you can look at it a few ways, legally or culturally. Legally, sure, there's the aspect of states having some amount of control over their own laws, but this tends to only cover specifics and relatively minor stuff in the grand scheme of things, with the country's law taking precedence in most cases. Culturally, there is a fair difference between states, but I still see the overall as cultural identity as stronger than the variations between different states. There's a far greater difference in cultures between, say, countries in Europe, than states in the US. And even within a fairly small country like the UK, I'd say there's just as much of a range in cultures across the country as there is across the US. You guys have the benefit that you almost all speak the same language, English, while over here every country has its own language, sometimes even different religion. Even within the UK there are several different spoken national languages. English, Scots and Welsh are the big ones. In Wales, all communications from the local government must be in both English and Welsh. There's also some speakers of Irish, Anglo-Romani and Gaelic. A few people speak Cornish too. Edit, I'd be quite surprised to find anyone born here that doesn't have English as a first language, except for possibly the children of some recent immigrants. Edit 2, looks like I'm wrong. Even within the languages there are regions with their own words and dialects. Northumberland, Newcastle has a lot of words, some with Nordic origins, which someone from the south of England wouldn't understand. Always found this clip of Stephen Fry getting confused by a Newcastle dialect amusing, youtube.com. The 50 states are hardly autonomous with so much federal law on the books. So Trevor is overstating the case for the purpose of humor. To me they pretty much seem like provinces that basically every country has, not different countries. I can see the point of a statement like that. There is a big difference, and a lot of common ground between, say, California, Rhode Island, and North Dakota. Then again, if you ever ask me, I always answer I'm a Texan. I pledge allegiance to the flag of Texas, and those other 49, lesser states. The states aren't like countries, some of them are like Texas and California and a few others, but most are more like provinces that every other country has. The states aren't separate enough from us Congress to be country-like. Not 50, no, but maybe 10 or so? Yeah, I think culturally a lot of regions could probably hold together as one country, the South, the Midwest, the Southwest, etc. California, New England would probably stand to be several smaller countries. Lol, wait until you visit India. Only 50? I live in NYC. There are people here who live in Manhattan who have never been to Staten Island, and people who live in Staten Island who have never been to a different part of Staten Island. Why do you guys even listen to Trevor Noah? Hess not even American and he just takes the mickey out of everything with his inflammatory humor. Hess not the one I think anyone should be quoting when making political arguments. Hess a TV comedian who ignores stats and figures, and just goes along what will get the people talking the most. Any differences between the states are pretty minor in comparison to leaving the USA to somewhere else. There are differences, but all 50 states are distinctly American, even a place like Hawaii.